With my efforts, I have become familiar with the lock cylinder of the iron door. But the iron door still cannot be opened. I tried my best and pinned my hope on the last fishbone. Meanwhile, the maid in the kitchen is prepared dinner. The yellow-haired maid felt a bit strange about the behavior of the black-haired maid these days. But she didn't have too many doubts. When the black-haired maid was preparing to bring dinner over, I had already successfully escaped from the basement. Can I escape from here smoothly?
At this moment, Moen was still squatting in front of the iron gate. Just now, he activated his skill and saw 12 lock cylinders inside the door lock. If he does not understand the corresponding position of the lock cylinder, clearly unlocking will fail and the fishbone used for unlocking will also be scrapped. He held onto the door with one hand and inserted a fishbone into the lock with the other, continuing to try to use the fishbone to unlock the door. He was fully focused on the door lock and dared not let his hands stop to rest. Moen gently turned the fishbone in his hand, constantly testing where the lock cylinder was located. Just as he cautiously touched one of the lock cylinders, he heard a crisp sound coming from inside the door lock, very clearly. Once again, Moen nervously took the broken fishbone out of the door lock. He stared at it with wide eyes, unable to believe that he had failed to pick the lock yet again. 3 lock cylinders. Only the last 3 lock cylinders are left. Damn it. Moen shouted a few times in despair. He quickly threw away the fish bones and lay down directly on the ground. He scratched his head with both hands and rolled wildly on the ground, trying to ease his emotions at this moment. He has tried several times to open the door lock and has already figured out where the lock cylinder should be located. However, this time, his fishbone still couldn't hold on for too long. This made him feel very anxious. After a while, Moen slowly calmed down. He breathed lightly, opened his arms, and lay on the ground very casually. Due to the significant amount of energy required to unlock, he was already sweating profusely. He stared at the ceiling with a despairing expression and said weakly, "An hour and a half of hard work was in vain. The craftsman who made this lock, I wish you good health, family wealth." Damn it, I'm so angry. Moen had to sit up from the ground. After all, it's useless for him to continue lying on the ground. He lifted a hand and placed it on his forehead, forcefully stabilizing his emotions. He sighed helplessly and then casually spoke into the empty basement. "Black Book." At this moment, Black Book responded to Moen's call. The black magical energy spun and condensed behind Moen, slowly forming a book and falling into Moen's hands. Moen opened the black book and looked up the content displayed on its pages. It's 5:30 p.m. now, about an hour before Anne comes to deliver the food. He lifted his hand and scratched his head while reading the book. He looked at the content with a serious expression, as if he was thinking about something. Only the last fishbone remains. Beside Moen's hand, there is a complete fishbone and a broken fishbone. It seems that he has used all the fishbones he had in his hand, but none of them were able to successfully open the large iron door. If he still can't open the door with the last fishbone, then he won't have a chance to escape. Moen doesn't want to easily give up the opportunity to escape. He looked at the iron door in front of him with a determined gaze. Due to his intense focus on the fishbone and door lock, his eyes had turned slightly red and he felt very dry. However, he no longer cares about this. His only thought now is to successfully unlock the door lock. He picked up the last fishbone and gently gripped it, as if placing all his hope in it. It's okay, I've already fully figured out the first 10 lock cylinders. This is the last hope. This time it will definitely succeed. Moen put down his hand and activated his unlocking skill once again. Fishbone lock-picking technique, full firepower. At this moment, a lot of black energy emanated from him in an instant. His eyes suddenly turned black and emitted a dazzling light. He concentrated all his magic on this fishbone and began his final attempt to unlock. As Moen was working hard to unlock the basement, Anne and Noelle stood in front of the stove in the kitchen preparing dinner for today. At this moment, the sun had already begun to slowly set. The sunset quietly shone into the kitchen and added some warm colors to it. Anne was busy cutting vegetables and cooking soup while Noel followed her to help her. The sound of chopping vegetables and boiling soup disrupted the tranquility of the kitchen. Some steam secretly floated out of the pot, reminding the two cooks that the food in the pot was almost cooked. In no time, a pot of fresh and beautiful white fish soup was cooked. There are not only fish in the pot, but also some tofu and a little scallion as decoration. The steaming hot fish soup kept bubbling under the burning flames, and the aroma of the fish soup slowly drifted out of the pot. The appearance and aroma of fish soup make people unable to resist wanting to drink a bowl. Noelle picked up a spoon and scooped a spoonful of fish soup into her bowl. She blew a few breaths into the bowl to cool down the fish soup and then took a sip. Wow, this is so delicious. No wonder it's fish from Lake Bibor. This is the best fish soup I have ever tasted in my life. Noelle closed her eyes, holding a bowl with one hand and placing the other hand on her cheek, enjoying the warm sensation brought by the fish soup to her body. The taste of fish soup made her unable to help but exclaim in praise. Upon hearing Noel's evaluation of the fish soup, Anne smiled at her. Then she took out a heat retention jar, made with her magic power. She picked up a spoon and filled the thermos with soup while saying to Noel, "Thanks to Noel's help, the preparation time for dinner today was an hour earlier than usual, and the soup tasted even more delicious." Upon hearing Anne's praise, Noel chuckled foolishly. She shyly touched her head and showed a happy expression as she said to Anne, "It's nothing, I'm just helping out a little bit." Anne blended the taste of the fish soup well. At this moment, Noel said something to Anne. "However, Anne, I noticed that you seem to be learning how to make new dishes whenever you have free time recently. Now that the Duke and Duchess are not at home, the young master has also gone to school, and there are only a few of us in the mansion." Upon hearing Noel's words, Anne stopped the action of scooping fish soup in his hand. She lowered her head slightly, her expression obscured by shadows, making it difficult to see clearly. "And I also noticed that during this period, every time you cook, you take some of it away with you. In addition, we've been eating fish for the past few days." While Noel was still speaking, Anne used magic to make a big knife and a small knife placed next to the cutting board float gently. What Noelle didn't know was that Anne seemed a bit angry with her words now. She was worried that Noelle might have noticed something, so she began to doubt her. If she continues to speak, Anne may have to take a more dangerous approach to seal her mouth. At this moment, Noelle reached out her hand, as if she had known something. "Oh, I got it." And must have secretly kept a small pet in the mansion. "I guess it's a cat, right?" Noel spoke to Anne with a light and lively tone about her guest, while raising her hand to imitate the movements of a cat walking. However, Anne did not answer Noel. Noel seems to have not noticed Anne's abnormality. She lightly touched her chin with her index finger and looked up as if she was seriously thinking something. Young master doesn't like small animals. He said their fur flies everywhere, so we haven't kept any cats or dogs in our mansion all along. Let's see, keeping small animals without permission is also a bit against the regulations of the mansion. Now, Anne is the head maid, so due to your identity, you cannot tell everyone. Am I right? When Anne heard what Noel said, her mouth slightly curved up. She gently turned around and lifted her hand, placing her index finger on her lips and making a silent gesture. She gave a gentle smile and whispered to Noel, "Can you keep this secret for me?" Noel agreed to Anne with a light and cheerful tone. Of course. Actually, I also really like furry cats. When I was in the countryside, my grandmother had many cats.